Alright, what's up guys? So today I wanted to talk about the whole passport bro movement and why I believe that most of these relationships are going to fail. I'm not gonna sit here and criticize men who are going overseas looking for love. I got married to a Colombian, so if I were to criticize that, I would be a hypocrite first off. I think it's very admirable for a person to go to a new country all by themselves, regardless of what their motivation is, in hopes of a better life. A lot of people went to America looking for better opportunity financially. Some people like me enjoy traveling for new experiences and being able to experience new cultures, and women happen to be a part of that. Some men particularly travel just for women. It's better than just like staying at home and criticizing people actually going out there and doing it. The thing that I wanted to talk about today is culture and assimilation, because often when the conversation is had, these men glorify foreign women like they're the best thing since sliced bread, that they're more feminine, they're more sexy. But the thing that I always laugh about, most of these men do not assimilate to the culture that they're getting these women from. I saw this very clearly when I was in Colombia, because a lot of people in Colombia, when they talk about the women or even the expats who live in Colombia, are so caught up in the fantasy of everything that they refuse to see and acknowledge all of the flaws that it comes with. It's because of the fact that most foreigners who go to Colombia specifically don't even take the time to learn Spanish. Out of all the people that I've met, 90% of the people can't even speak basic Spanish to a B1 level. For example, me personally, I learned the language. I really got to know the culture. I got married to experience it firsthand. So when I talk about these things, I understand Colombia on such a deep level that I can see all the cons and I could acknowledge them and understand why a lot of Colombians want to leave. I had this interesting thought lately. I understand why our ancestors wanted us to date people within our culture. It just makes a lot more sense because there's a lot of things within culture. If you dated someone within that same culture, you would not have to explain. Makes for a more harmonious relationship in the future. In Europe and in Asia, you have populations that look very similar, but each country has their own culture that is very, very different. In America, we all look different, but after a few generations, we all become American. We're living in a world now where everything is globalized. People are dating outside of their race more than ever. In my travels now, I find myself relating the most to the kids of immigrants who grew up in Western countries, regardless of how they look like. They could be Latin, they could be Nigerian, of Indian descent, they could be Asian. I think that we share a very, very similar experience. Me trying to talk to a Viet person, we look very similar. A lot of people assume that I'm Viet, but I feel like a complete foreigner in these countries. My culture and how I view the world, the things that I appreciate are more American than Chinese. I think that in a relationship, right, if two people come from different cultures, one of them inevitably is going to have to assimilate to the culture of the other person. I think that compromises can be met, but it's very, very difficult. There are things in the culture that are polar opposites. So a good example of this, Latin people are morning people. Asian people tend to be night people. This doesn't seem like an issue, but it becomes a conflict when you're trying to plan social events, when you're trying to go out. With my ex-wife and her family, they would be up at 7 a.m. and they would be excited, making breakfast, all energy. I don't have energy until like 10 a.m. I work the best at night. Like I can stay up till 1, 2, sometimes 3 in the morning, watching TV, playing video games, editing a video, creating music, and I'm as happy as a clam. But most of them could not stay up past 11 p.m. without feeling tired. But even further than that, the way that we approach family. Viet people and Thai people are a little more similar to Colombians in this regard. They're a lot more family oriented, but Chinese people and Japanese people, maybe Koreans, I'm not entirely sure yet, we're a lot more cold. We don't see our family that often. I talk to my family maybe once a month and we'll occasionally text each other, but it's very, very rare. Whereas Latin people are constantly talking to their family. For me, being in that environment, it was such a culture shock because I was just not used to that level of involvement from the family that it was just kind of overwhelming. I think one of the best moments that you can have in a friendship or a relationship is when you guys have like an inside joke, right? It could be that a song comes up. Like I remember when I was growing up, the Teach Me How to Dougie song or Cat Daddy. There's so many cultural moments in the US you can only understand if you grew up in America. I have found that I've connected the most with people that grew up in these Western countries, understand the memes and the humor and everything that I grew up with. And I really recently dated an Israeli girl, but she grew up in the UK and she also spent a couple of years in Thailand. So she was bouncing around a lot. And her and I, we connected on so many levels. She had a great appreciation for Asian culture, so we can share Asian food, and she loved Asian food. We laughed about very similar things. We knew about similar memes and cultural events. We had similar tastes in music. There are so many things that were just fixed by the fact that we had very similar experiences growing up. So I think connection is quite relative, and we are naturally drawn to people who share a similar experience to us. In the US, a black person and me may have a lot different, but if you put both of us in a foreign country, all of a sudden we are as close as possible. Children of immigrants face this issue. I'm too American for the Asians, but I'm too Asians for the Americans. So we're kind of in this weird like limbo phase right now. I don't have a strong cultural identity, and this is something I'm very jealous of for other people who grew up in other nations, not the US. They have such pride for their country, but for me it's like, yeah, I'm American, but I don't feel that strongly about America because America always treats me as an Asian, not an American. So going back to the passport bro movement, I get contacted by tons of men through consultations and through emails about this specific topic. They have this false idea that they can go to a foreign country, get a very beautiful woman to submit to them, and then bring them back to their home country. Like it's super easy and it's better. But that just comes with a bunch of issues. If you're really looking for a good girl with great family values, what makes you think that their family is going to allow some foreigner to come in and take their child, take them off back to the US, unless they're all looking for better financial opportunity? Which leads to another issue. A lot of these women that once they go to the US, they end up divorcing the man. It becomes a bunch of problems. I'm sure that there are successful relationships that come from this dynamic. For people who have traveled overseas and who are dating cross-culturally and cross-racially and all those things, what have your experiences been like? I feel that the experience that I had with my ex-wife was not unique. Foreigners, especially Americans, in many countries around the world come with a lot of status attached. It makes sense that passport bros rave about how these women treat Americans because we're usually seen as like a dollar sign, right? So a lot of these women are obviously going to be on their best behavior, but the unfortunate truth is that a lot of the women that are gonna be going after you are women that are looking for a green card or for money or for opportunity to go to the US. So they're always gonna be on their best behavior until they get married or they get the green card, and once they have security, it's very easy for them to flip. And we hear horror stories about that all the time. I know of a few personally that they came to Colombia, they dated a girl, it was all good once they were here in Colombia, but as soon as they went to the States, they were divorced within a year. It became messy. It just exploded into this horrible thing. I think a lot of what these passport bro YouTubers are talking about, it's a very false representation of what it's like dating overseas. They only get a very superficial experience. It's all cool if you just want to spend some time with a girl, but for people like me who are more interested in long-term dating and relationships, the cultural differences at one point or another are going to show themselves in the relationship, and sometimes they are differences that are so big that it can end up destroying the relationship. So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? I'm very curious to hear what you guys say in the comments down below. How do you like my baby face? Most Viet people don't have facial hair, right? So I decided to try a new look so I can blend in a little more. Let me know if you guys prefer me with the mustache or without the mustache.